Welcome to the Vault XL. Happy Friday to the viewing audience. This live is pertaining to Lori Vallow Daybell. I will be bringing you the latest events from court from Wednesday and Thursday. And later I will recap what happened in court today. Thank you for your time. The movie of the weekend, is The Wrong House, now playing on YouTube. Sorry, I have not brought any suggestions. I've been a little behind, as most of you know, with my commentary, so please forgive me. Weekend movie, The Wrong House. You can watch it via YouTube. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to play two updates pertaining to breaking news before I get into my commentary of Lori Vallow Daybell. The first update is pertaining to Donald Trump. The second update is pertaining to secrets that have been released online by a 21-year-old male. I will bring you that said information. Thank you for your time. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $Big Angie 129 Cash App. All stickers and chats are welcome during this live stream. Hello, Sammy P. Thank you. Let's get started with Donald Trump. 1 second, you guys. Okay, everybody, sorry about that. Hello, Crazy P. See, you're up early. Wanted to get this information out so I don't get behind in the updates pertaining to Lori Vallow. Once again, I'm going to play updates to breaking news pertaining to Donald Trump and military secrets that have been released online, and then I will go into my commentary pertaining to Lori Vallow Daybell. CBS News is the source for my update number one.
All right, but we begin with this. Former President Donald Trump, he is back here in New York City for the first time since his historic arrest here last week.
New York State's Attorney General is deposing Trump as part of a case surrounding his company's business dealings. Trump arrived in New York last night. This investigation is a result of the Attorney General's $250 million civil suit against the former president, 3 of his children, and the Trump Organization. Her office claims the company manipulated the value of its properties to receive favorable loans and insurance rates. Trump, for his part, denies any wrongdoing.
CBS News investigative reporter Graham Case joins us now here in Studio 57. Graham, it's great to have you in the building and seated. A week ago, we were standing all day as Trump was being arraigned here in New York City. The last time, though, he's been in a situation like this, he pleaded the Fifth, right? He was deposed by the AG's office last August, repeatedly used his Fifth Amendment right, but that was before this deposition was filed. Might we expect the same outcome today?
No, so Trump is expected to actually answer the questions today. And there's a big difference. This is the same case, but that was before the lawsuit was filed. And now they're in the discovery process before an expected civil trial in October. And the thing about invoking the Fifth at this point is that the jury could actually use that against you. They could see that, they could interpret that as being evidence of some sort of wrongdoing. And they don't have to interpret it that way, but you risk that if you invoke the Fifth. So a source has told me that he's expecting to answer the questions today. We don't know exactly what he's going to be asked, but we're expecting it to be relatively similar to the last deposition where they kind of peppered him about different valuations and things that appeared on his financial statement over the course of many years.
Graham, the former president is also going on the offensive, filing a lawsuit against his former lawyer and fixer, Michael Cohen. What more have you learned on that front?
Sure. So Michael Cohen is the key witness against him in a different case. That's his criminal case in Manhattan. And he's really been the catalyst for a lot of the allegations and criminal allegations against former President Trump. And what the lawsuit asks for is it's a $500 million suit. And he claims that Cohen violated attorney-client privilege and the terms of their contract and unjustly enriched himself through his books and podcasts based on what they say was confidential information provided to him by Trump. But it's worth noting some of the information that's out there and a lot of the information that led to the criminal charges were part of the case in which Cohen himself was convicted in entered a guilty plea in federal court back in 2018. So it's going to be a complicated lawsuit that as it plays out for Trump to win. But at this point, it's a it's a way of clapping back at Cohen for causing to Trump, as far as Trump is concerned, a lot of heartache.
And that's what Cohen's team had said, that Trump traditionally uses the legal system to try and punish people who have come out against him and try to silence them. There's so much that you just laid out. There does seem to be some connection, but how does the indictment in the hush money case, which we covered last week, affect this?
So it doesn't have to necessarily, but the Attorney General's office, the Manhattan DA, have kind of run these parallel investigations over the course of many years. And they even have deputies from the Attorney General's office working inside the Manhattan DA's office. So if Trump were to say something, or if something were to pop up in the Attorney General's investigation that somehow bore implications on the criminal case, there's nothing to bar them from sharing that information. And the same goes vice versa. And they've been open about that. They're running separate investigations, one's civil and one's criminal, but they're allowed to and they're open to sharing information.
Fascinating to watch. We appreciate you being across all of those threads. Crown Cates, thank you.
All right, that's information pertaining to Donald Trump. CBS News is the source. Let me say this. This male has been defrauding people for a long time. Okay, I think back to an incident where a man was had a company, painting company. He was painting one of the rooms upstate, one of the properties that Mr. Trump owned. It was an event hall, I believe, or at a I want to say what is the word I'm looking for? Country club. The man was hired to paint rooms or whatever for Mr. Trump, and he was owed $30,000 and he never got that money. Okay. Then you have all these incidents pertaining to fraud with the university and the school not living up to its expectations and whatever it was supposed to be offering the students. And we already know that when you represent yourself in asking for a loan, it doesn't matter what the loan is for. You're expected to, one, pay the money back, and whatever information that you give in the documents are supposed to be accurate. So naturally, people have lied, of course, to fudge what they actually make to get a loan for whatever reason. But it is up to the bank to do their research to make sure that you have available funds to pay the money back. I believe the issue with Trump and this issue of defrauding people is the obvious. You are relying on his name alone. But now you find out that he's lied about the properties he's owned and the value of the properties in order to secure the loans. And I think these banks only gave him the money because of his name and the fact that he was allegedly a millionaire, billionaire at the time of asking for the loans. Well, I learned years ago from ABC News 2020 that Trump didn't really own a lot of these properties, that other people were in cahoots with him and they used his name because they knew, as I just said, it would draw in people to patronize and I guess, of course, give monies, loans, whatever. So now you find out that a lot of the properties had other people's names tied into the properties. It wasn't just Mr. Trump alone. So that goes to show you he didn't have the money that people assume he had. He's a fraud. So when you count in lying to secure loans for properties, lying with a university that did not meet its expectations to the people who were applying for the schools and taking the courses, defrauding people that worked for him, such as this painter, $30,000 for this country club, numerous accusations of affairs with different women while he was married to his current wife after she gave birth. We have information of that coming out. This is the same person that some of you think should have been our president. This is your representation. He's a poor representation. Yes, people are flawed. They lie, they steal, they manipulate, they con, they assault. But you don't usually hear those said things about them. That's the difference. Somebody has to testify that, hey, he or she did this to me, said this to me, lied to me, hurt me. But you've always heard crazy nonsense pertaining to Mr. Trump. Now, it was one thing him being a reality TV star. I liked him as Mr. Trump on the show because that's all I knew of him, okay? And a real estate mogul, allegedly. But then when he decided to cross into politics, things started to come out about many people. Their behavior was erratic, which was baffling to me, how people became so immersed in this Trump politics. People started to act like they were wild animals, baboons. And I don't get it, because he's just a man. He's nothing more and nothing less. And as you hear in his commentary, anytime anyone goes against him, says anything against him, he starts to bash them. Now he's saying ugly things about the judge in this case in New York. Accusations of racism. Racist against who, Mr. Trump? You're white, so what are you saying? So what are you saying? The judge is what? A different race? What? I'm confused. See, that's the point. And as you hear about Mr. Cohen, wanting to sue him. Why? He was your ace in the hole a while back. But common sense should tell you, once a person's name comes up in any type of allegation of fraud or any type of manipulation with funds, and especially campaign funds, you think that man was going to continue to uphold you when the money came out of his pocket, his bank account, they could trace the monies. So he has to now explain that to the government. You think he's going to lie on your behalf and throw his entire life and his livelihood down the tubes family for Donald Trump? Of course not. Of course not. And you just assume because you have gotten away with defrauding people that nothing was going to happen to you. And you've done it for many years because you're an elderly person. You're 70 plus years old. So you've been defrauding and conning a long time. It's been alleged that you never paid taxes. How is that possible? When we know that the richest of people, such as Oprah Winfrey, Bill Gates, they pay taxes. So I want to know why these billionaires are paying taxes and you are not, if that allegation is true. So we need to have a chit chat with our national government, the IRS, because I'd like to know if it's true he's never paid taxes. I'm trying to figure out how this man, whether he's worth 10 million or 10 billion, how would you get out of paying taxes? Explain that to me. When we have a lot of people in this country that are very wealthy, and you know damn well they pay their taxes. Mr. Trump is a crybaby. He turns on anyone on a whim. They don't agree with his ideologies. They work for him and no longer work for him, and they speak out on anything negative pertaining to him, any accusations against them as well, in being in cahoots with Mr. Trump. He has a problem with them. And only a fool would go into a courtroom and lash out against the judge on social media. That shows you he's a coward, because it's amazing how you would invoke your right to speak. And it is your legal right, the Fifth Amendment, not to speak. But why then go to social media and lash out against the judge and this person and that person? You think the judge doesn't watch TV and listens to social media? Of course he or she does. And you forget that that person will be holding your fate. So what fool is going to go into a courtroom, be accused of fraud, and in the same breath go to social media and talk bad about the damn judge? This is a God complex that Mr. Trump has. He feels like he's invincible. He's 2 minutes from death and don't even realize it. And you would think in these last years of his life, he would find something more constructive to do. In their pocketbook. I think most of you know this. And that's Mr. Trump. Second deposition. They say he will speak. Now imagine going into court, spewing off that same rhetoric that you like to put on Twitter, going on and on and on. I'd like to hear him tell the judge he's racist and that the people in the case are racist and that, hey, you don't like me. Imagine the judge's response. Well, Mr. Trump, first of all, I don't even know you personally. And I'm here to orchestrate this courtroom and give a rendering with the said information, nothing more, nothing less. See, this is a fool. Because imagine if the judge is, let's just say, a Republican and likes Mr. Trump. But Mr. Trump doesn't really know that. He doesn't know that. And then now you're putting all this nasty stuff out on social media, and then you have to go stand in the same courtroom with that same judge. Imagine that. See, this is why you don't put people on pedestals and praise people that you don't know anything about. Because it says it in the scripture, you will surely be disappointed if you put your faith in man. And Mr. Trump, by all means, is not a man who I would put my trust into, because his mouth is foul and he's very vulgar and nasty. And this is the same person some of you voted for and put into office. And even after the fact of losing the election, he is still running his mouth on social media like an infant. Well, let me say small child, because infants don't speak. But his behavior is of an infant, and his behavior is of a school-aged child that likes to throw tantrums to get attention. But see, I don't bother with people like Mr. Trump, because to me, he's an ordinary person. He's no different than the garbage man, the crackhead running around, the guy that sticks up the grocery store. I view them all the same. Just people who are a waste of space. I don't put stock into people like Mr. Trump, people who just lash out every day on social media and knowing that they have to attend legal hearings and that same judge will be officiating. That's something a fool would do. But obviously he is a fool. And that's a word we're not supposed to use, but I'm going to say that during this live stream. Only a fool would talk about a judge and then go stand in his or her courtroom as if you haven't said anything about that person. He needs to be banned from social media altogether. I would not give him an interview on any national syndicate, because you're feeding the flames and you never give the devil a platform. That's my commentary pertaining to Mr. Trump. The next commentary, before I go into my Lloyd Vallow Daybell case, is pertaining to secrets being released. Now, I don't know what the hell's wrong with this kid, why he would even waste his breath doing this. He must want to die in a prison. And then we have to decide, well, the government will decide if he will be tried in federal court or he will be handled by the military. I will put a poll up pertaining to that question. Should this be federal or should this be military court? I would assume military because he was in the military. CBS News is the source. U.S. identifies man who allegedly leaked Pentagon documents. Mercy me. What a mess. First it was Mr. Snow, now this guy. Yikes. 21 years of age. Thank you all so much for joining me.
Leak of classified Pentagon documents on several social media sites.
Sources tell CBS News it is Jack Teixeira. He is reportedly a member of the Massachusetts Air National Guard. The documents appear to reveal details about the war in Ukraine. They also suggest that the U.S. is spying on key allies.
CBS News intelligence and national security reporter Olivia Gazis joins us now. Olivia, you alluded to who this person was and why they perhaps did this. Tell us more about what we're learning about this suspect.
That's right. Well, Errol and Lana, just as you laid out, 3 U.S. officials are now confirming to us here at CBS News, to colleagues, that a suspect in this matter is Jack Teixeira, who is a member of, we believe, the intelligence arm of the Massachusetts Air National Guard. His unit, per our Pentagon team, would typically be handling intelligence collected by surveillance aircraft like Reaper and Predator Jones. And according to other reports, we understand him to be a young man, possibly the administrator of this small Discord server where months ago highly classified materials began appearing before they spread to other sites. There's a lot of questions swirling about his identity and his access right now, including why somebody at his level would have had access to these really highly finished classified intelligence products really meant for the senior-most defense leadership at the Pentagon.
Exactly, Olivia. Like, when we're learning that this person, the suspect, is it's just a member of the Massachusetts Air National Guard, it seems to defy logic that he would have access to this type of classified material. How is the intelligence community responding to these details?
Sure. Well, this is just coming in right now, so the questions are definitely swirling. I mean, we don't know a lot yet about how he accessed the documents, right? Is it just he was able to see everything in classified systems in his own right? Was he getting anything forwarded? Was he going through trash? We don't really know the chain of custodianship about these documents. They appear to have been printed off and folded up, according to other reports that have emerged overnight and today. He was typing up some information before turning to photographs of these documents. So there are still a lot of unknowns about the access there. We do appear to understand that they were supposed to be contained to this small group of users, roughly 25 on a small channel on Discord. That user group, we've started to see some interviews come out that describe him as a relatively young man who worked on a military base, who likely had access, again, to secure government facilities, again, but we do not know how he was coming about specifically these highly classified documents, and I'm sure that there are plenty of government officials and lawmakers who are going to want answers to those questions.
Exactly. So we know Jack Teixeira is the suspect here with the Air National Guard of Massachusetts in the intelligence realm. I'm wondering if an arrest is imminent, considering there are multiple investigations into what he is alleged to have done. And Olivia, I know you and the DC Bureau team have been looking through additional documents that have been posted as well. So what's the latest there?
That's right. And you did hear the president this morning say that this is going to go quickly. We do know that the FBI has been leading this investigation over the past several days. And we do know that they started out with a universe of potential suspects that was necessarily pretty small, just given, again, how highly restricted this material usually is. We came to learn that, the people who compile these briefing documents, which look like they were prepared for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the documents that we have seen emerge, we do know that there are, dozens of people who do prepare those documents. So access to the underlying materials may have been a little bit broader. But as we've been discussing in recent days, the printers that are used to print top secret classified materials register every time those documents are printed. So really, investigators had a lot to go on already when they began cross-checking with IP addresses of people who were accessing these Discord servers in recent months.
Really fascinating story, major developments. Olivia, thank you so much. We'll continue checking in with you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. CBS News is the source. Okay. I think his name is Jack Teixeira, 21 years of age. So now we have to ask ourselves, what in the hell is going on here? First, we have balloons flying over, Alaska, Canada, then America. Were not immediately shot down. Why, I don't know. More than one. And now we have someone who actually works with the military and has access to classified information. And somehow this person has decided to take that information and leak it into a Discord group. I'm assuming Facebook. I don't deal with the Discord. I don't know much about it. YouTube's enough for me. How did this come to be? How did this come to be? Because I would assume you have to use a password to log into your computer when you're going to work with secretive documents. And I would assume there would be somebody monitoring every worker that has access to any information, no matter if it was secretive or not. Because I'm sure you have to use some type of password or your name to log into the information. So how would you be able to log into it and then transfer it over to another entity such as Discord? I'm not computer savvy, so I don't know how that would work. But obviously it works because we're not talking about private information being leaked to social media. So now you have to ask the ultimate question besides, how did he do it? Why did he do it? And if it was 21 years of age or 35, 45, why are you doing this? You work for the government. Are you upset with the government? You upset with the National Guard? You upset with your pay? You're angry. Let me guess. Sexuality issues. I'm just going out there on a limb. What's the problem? And you have to know that you would get caught eventually, because only a fool would go into a group and be the orchestrator of the information and not think the people in the group would go outside the group and call the authorities to say you're leaking this classified information. And you heard in this commentary, at least 25 people had access to the information. So will it be somebody was pretending to be him and used his profile, or a fake profile? But we already know that things are traced through IPS address when you log into a computer. So they're going to trace it back to the said person. And obviously that's how they got his name, because wherever he was logging into the Discord, whatever information he was releasing led back to the IP address, whatever. And then voila, we have a person. I'm trying to understand, why did he do it? What was the purpose? Did you do it because you, once again, God complex? I did it because I could. I did it because I can. I don't need a reason. What will he say his reasons were for releasing that information? So what was the information that was so pertinent that Americans needed to know? That our government is spying on other people. And who are those other people? Other countries or Americans? Well, we've already heard that America spies on us. I think you know that just from logging into Facebook. You could be on a cell phone talking to someone about diapers, Pampers, Mop and Glow, and next thing you know, there's a commercial advertisement coming up in your feed pertaining to diapers, Mop and Glow, if you see where I'm going. Same thing with the Gmail. All these people sending you information. Coupons for this. You just want a phone, blah, blah, blah. But you never gave your email out to these said entities. So somebody's fishing and pooling and paying for our information, such as calling people on the phone wanting to donate to the Firemen's League and the Firemen's Union and the Police Union. And these are fraudsters who have found your cell phone number. And you can block them, which I've done this one man 1,000 times. He keeps getting my telephone number to keep calling me about donating to the police union, this and that. And then next time I look up, it's the Firemen's Union. I thought, boy, you are well connected, are you not? Once you put something out there, it stays out there. Doesn't matter if the head knocker of Facebook, Twitter decides to delete your account or never let you back on. Somebody else may have access to something that you posted. So once again, I'm going to ask this question. What was the motive for putting this information out here, sir? You didn't think about getting caught. You didn't think about doing hard time in a military prison. So what was the motive? Number one. Two, was it worth it? Because now your freedom is in jeopardy. And you have to have known that you would get caught. So then we have to ask that question. Did you want to get caught? Number four, what is man, woman? We are dirty. We are nasty. We are vile. Now, naturally, everyone that works with the government, state government, local, politicians, garbage man, retailer, everybody's not dirty, nasty, vile, but people group one as to say, the government's horrible. But we know that everyone in the government are not liars, thieves, defrauders. But people group everybody the same. So now, what group do we classify you in for selling these secrets out? Or not selling them out, but putting them out. And then we have to ask that question too. Number 5, did you sell the secrets to anybody? Did you sell the secrets to someone, sir? And once again, why did you release this information? When I get an update pertaining to this leaked documents, this storyline, I will bring you an update. Any information pertaining to Mr. Trump. Once again, weekend movie, The Wrong House, now playing on YouTube. Let's talk about Miss Lori Vallow Daybell. Thank you for joining me. It is now Friday, end of a week of trial. And only imagine what's going on out there in Idaho. Let's see, because I'm 2 hours ahead, so it is now 8:43. So court should be starting here shortly out there. I'm going to bring you an update pertaining to Ms. Daybell. Then I will play audio pertaining to recaps of what's been going on in court. We're going to go to the 3rd day of trial. Thank you all so much for joining me. Thank you for those who are in the chat. Sammy, Crazy Lady. Thank you all so much for joining me. Slow run this morning. I think the more information that comes out about Lori Vallow, Daybell, the children, the Woodcocks, you realize how sick the world is. Just listening to the description of the bodies and finding the bodies. I can't even imagine the people who found them, because many people aren't really talking about that. Imagine the officers who found the children. You dug up the earth, and then you pull these bodies out, a body out, then what's believed to be remains of the girl child. It's just hard to fathom. Anyone would do this to a child. It's wrong if you do it to an adult, but these were children. Hello, Brittany. Thanks for joining me, sweetheart. You can hit the link if you want to, Brittany, if you got time to talk. And anyone else in the chat is welcome to join me if you want me to drop the link after I play this information. Sorry, I got a little winded with Mr. Trump and the selling of the secrets, but those are the updates I wanted to bring out because I'm not going to do individual videos about that subject matter. All right. KSL News Radio is the source. This is pertaining to the 3rd day of testimony pertaining to Lori. By mid-morning, court was adjourned. The prosecution released this statement. There's been a death in the family of one of the prosecutor's lead attorneys. The court and defense have been gracious in allowing the prosecution to adjust to this personal situation. Lori Vallow Daybell is charged with 7 felonies. She and her husband, Chad, are accused of murdering her 2 children, JJ Vallow, Tyler Ryan. Vallow Daybell is also accused of conspiring to murder Daybell's late wife, Tammy Daybell. In his questioning of Rexburg Police Detective Ray Hermosillo, defense attorney John Thomas attempted to clarify the timeline of the events and the items found on Chad Daybell's property was searched on June 9th and June 10th, 2020. Thomas also clarified the process of transferring bodies from a crime scene to a coroner's office, and weather boards that were found at the burial site were also found inside Chad Daybell's garage. Hermosillo said that they were not able to match the boards found near the body of Tyler Ryan to those found in Chad Daybell's garage. Upon redirect, prosecuting attorney Rob Wood asked Hermosillo about guns found in Vallow Daybell's garage. It was extremely suspicious to have those guns along with everything else. Now, repeat, guns found in Vallow Daybell. So this is Lori now. This is her home. Extremely suspicious to have those guns along with everything else we located, Hermosillo told the court. The weapons were photographed, he said, in case police later learned they were used in the attempted homicide of Tammy Daybell. Roy Hermosil's questioning ended with an explanation of how tips from the public are used in a police investigation. He described that they set up a hotline through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children when J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan were still missing. He said they received photographs and tips from psychics, but that none of those tips they received led to J.J. or Tylee. The prosecution introduced a recorded telephone call between Lori Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell from June 9, 2020, the day the search of Chad Daybell's property began. As they listened, the jurors heard Chad Daybell tell Lori Vallow Daybell that police were searching his property. The two agreed that Lori should pray for Chad. At the time, Lori was jailed for failing to return her children to Rexburg. The bodies of the children would be found that day on Chad Daybell's property. So, reflection, June 9th. Law enforcement is on the property. Chad and Lori are on the phone. She was in jail at the time of this phone call that was recorded. The last person to testify on day 3 of Ms. Daybell's trial was a state witness, Lieutenant Joe Powell of the Fremont County Sheriff's Office. During state questioning, Powell described the exhumation and positive identification of Tammy Daybell alongside murders of J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan. Chad Daybell is charged with the murder of Tammy. That's the recap. KSL News Radio 102.7 FM is the source of this information. And many of you have probably heard of a little bit of this information pertaining to Lori and Chad talking, and she's asking him, what are they seizing? And he's very solemn in his conversation to her. They're searching. Because I guess he's not trying to elevate his voice and sound defensive or angry to this dodo bird that's asking him stupid questions. But as I told people before on my community board, if you're listening to this information via the phone, you would possibly think this is just an innocent conversation of a woman asking her husband, hey, what are they looking for? Hey, what did they seize? Blah, blah, blah. But then when you look back in hindsight, 2020, her behavior, she and Chad, you know that she had knowledge of the children, okay? Because how would her children, one, end up deceased and on his property, her new husband? Common sense, okay? But that's the thing, you have to follow the information. And as I've told you many times during my live streams, if you want to get to the truth of a story, it's always at the beginning. The truth is always at the beginning. Not the middle, not the end. Children missing, number 1. 2, mother is not reporting them missing. Number 3, mother doesn't act concerned that her children are missing. Number 4, the mother's out lollygagging around with her new husband. And both just lost their spouses. Stay woke. Stay woke now. Soon after, married, in Hawaii, taking photos, holding hands, being chased by media entities, yet no children, no explanation for where the children are. Asking questions. Hey, did you know America is praying for your children? What did Lori say? Oh, that's good. Oh, that's good. Why don't you tell the world where your children are? Then she never produced the children when mandated by the court. So that shows complicity. Because if you're not out here rallying with the police and the FBI about where your children are, that will lead one to believe you know where they are and possibly they are not alive. Because they never surface. JJ never surfaced. Tylee never surfaced. No more schooling. No more nothing. No more video calls with the Woodcocks from JJ. No more nothing. 2 long months of not seeing a boy child. No one hearing from the girl child, school, friends, family, nobody. See, that stupid mother of Lori should have known those kids were dead too. Because if you're close to your mother, wouldn't she be asking you, well, where are the children? I haven't seen them. I haven't heard from them. And there's all this talk right now on the news and the media. What's going on? So did Lori's mother, father, whomever ask her where the children were? Hey, let me see the children. And then I can tell the people in the public, yeah, the kids are safe. I've seen them. I've talked to them. But then the flip side would be, why would you take them out of school? And then the Woodcocks would ask, well, hey, Grandma, if you've seen the kids, why I can't see them? What's so special about you that you would be able to see the children and I wouldn't be able to see the kids? See, that's the gist of this story. Nobody was going to see them because they were dead. And it's hard to wrap your head around anyone killing children. But the stats show most children are killed by their parents and their guardians. That's a fact. Not a myth, not fiction, but the truth. So then you're going to ask yourself, is she mentally disabled? She has some mental disorder. Or is it just she was a follower of some man? He whispered sweet nothings in her ear about the 144,000, the apocalypse, the end of the world. He told her that she's chosen by Jesus and him too, and the rest is history. So they knock off all their family members so they can be a part of the chosen people. But see, the gist of this is also, why is it your family members are dead and nobody else's are dead? Why is it just your family members have dark spirits, zombies? Well, let me inform Chad and Lori. There's a whole lot of darkness. And you two would probably sit at the front of the row of the dark bodies, still breathing. So let's ask this question. Is there anybody out there that can testify that Tylee Ryan was a dark spirit? I'll wait. Because even if you wanted to say something negative about the dead 16-year-old girl, she was this, she was that, you still can't explain all those other dead people. That's the point of the story. There is no explanation for a dead wife, a dead husband, and 2 dead children. So we're supposed to believe that all these people had dark spirits. Tammy was a horrible woman. Charles was a horrible man. Tylee was a horrible girl child. And JJ was a horrible boy child. And God told these 2 beings to kill these people because they were what? Dark spirits. Nah, they were just in the way. Now we have Lori playing crazy in court and wanting to cry and moan and not look at the pictures. Well, why not? Because you're the cause of this. You and Chad, and I believe your niece is involved too, and your dead brother. And lucky for the dead brother, he can't tell no tales. But we will see if you all were stupid enough to talk via cell phones. So now let's ask this question. Is Lori talking to her current husband? Now that should be very interesting. All right, everybody, that's source number 1 pertaining to Lori. Events that took place in court on Wednesday. Let's now go to Thursday's events. Fox 13 Now is my second source. Salt Lake City News, if you're curious. Former friend of Vallow, Daybell, takes stand in day 4 of trial. A full day of prosecution witnesses took the stand in the trial against Lori Vallow Daybell on Thursday, with the prosecutors looking to connect the dots between Daybell and her alleged co-conspirators Alex Cox and Chad Daybell. Melanie Gibb, who is a friend of Vallow Daybell and lives in Arizona, was called to testify. After establishing the friendship between Melanie and Lori, the questions pivoted to the relationship as Gibb saw it between Chad and Lori when and how they met, their religious beliefs and events in their relationship while Lori was still married to Charles Vallow and Chad married to Tammy Daybell. Gibb testified that Lori and Chad both believe that you can come back to this world many times. Lori believes she and Chad had been married in a past life and were sealed by Jesus Christ. Gibb's testimony continued to get into the details of Lori's belief that Chad and Lori were in charge of a group of 144,000 people who are waiting for the end of time. She also detailed the scale of light and dark that they used to assess people. Light people were said to be in contract with the Savior, and dark people they believe were in contract with Satan, the way people are tied to good and evil. The testimony then shifted to discuss Charles Vallow. Gibb said that Chad had told Lori that Charles was taken over by an evil spirit in January 2019, and Lori believed him. So we have Chad allegedly telling Lori that Charles, her husband at that time, was taken over by an evil spirit. And this was in January of 2019. And this lady says that Lori believed him. Gibb then described castings. A casting began as a prayer and was used to cast evil spirits out of someone. Gibb participated in a casting with Lori in early 2019 to rid Charles of his evil spirit. Multiple castings were performed for Charles Vallow, though Chad was only present at one of them. Interesting. Gibb testified that Lori also believed that Brandon Boudreaux and Tylee were dark and that JJ had become possessed. In July of 2019, Lori's brother Alex Cox came to stay because Lori felt she needed protection from Charles. This was then when an alleged argument ensued that led, that led to Cox shooting Charles, claiming self-defense. Gibb testified that she did not witness the shooting. Gibb says Chad visited within a week or so after the death of Charles, and that Chad and Lori appeared to be very happy. Gibb then discussed the cell phone communication between Chad and Lori, and that Lori had a phone just for Chad. She also confirmed that Lori had told her the two were intimate, even though they were both married. After Charles's death, Lori told Gibb that JJ was becoming very difficult to handle and that Lori was going to ask Kay Woodcock to take custody of JJ. She testified that the last time she saw Tylee was just before they moved to Idaho, although on one occasion, Gibb visited Idaho with her boyfriend, David Ward, and she only saw JJ, not Tylee. Very interesting. Later, Gibb testified that Chad had told Lori that JJ had become dark, and although Lori told her JJ's behavior and demeanor had changed, Gibb didn't notice any change, and that JJ was a typical young autistic 7-year-old. Gibb testified that Chad and Lori were affectionate during the visit, but that Chad asked Ward not to share information about their relationship with people. Well, of course not, because they were still married. That's why. Okay. The last time Gibb saw JJ was on September 22nd when her brother, Alex Cox, took him upstairs in Lori's apartment. The prosecution circled back with Gibb about conversations she had with Lori about why Lori thought Charles was trying to kill her. Lori believed Charles wanted the money from a $1 million life insurance policy on her life. She also allegedly told her that if Charles died, his sister Kay would receive the money from his $1 million life insurance policy. So that's very interesting that here this woman is saying that Kay would receive the money from the policy. So we have to ask ourselves, well, then what would have been the purpose of her killing her husband then, if it was for the money? If we're to believe she had her brother invoke an argument to murder Charles, if you knew that Kay was going to get the money, then killing him wouldn't have solved a problem, unless you just wanted to be rid of him, period, which I do believe she did. But possibly maybe the money wasn't the motive. Because if we're to believe this lady here, Miss Gibb, she said she allegedly told her that if Charles died, Kay would receive the money from the $1 million life insurance policy. So that means if we're to believe this lady, Miss Gibb, then Lori already knew she wasn't on the policy. And I would assume if you're plotting someone's death and you're doing it for the money, wouldn't you call the insurance agent to see that you're still on the policy? I would assume she would do that. Even though she acts very green and gullible, Lori. But if you're going to kill somebody for insurance money, the common sense thing to do would be to call the insurance agent to see that you're still on the policy before murdering the person. So now we have to ask ourselves if this did tell her she's on the policy. It's very interesting information. Asking why Lori just didn't divorce Charles. Exactly. Lori told Gibbs she didn't believe in divorce. You don't believe in divorce, but you believe in... Are you all hearing this? This is crazy. Gibbs testified that she next spoke with Chad in November because they were looking for JJ and told her not to answer the phone. Repeat. Chad told her Rexburg police would be calling, looking for JJ, and he told her not to call the police. Gibb said she thought JJ was with his grandparents, but Chad told her that wasn't the case. Lori informed Gibb that she had told police that JJ was watching Frozen with Gibb and asked her to take photos of random kids at the movie theater and send them to the police. At first, Gibb avoided the police phone calls, but eventually spoke with them to tell them she did not have JJ and he had not been with her. Now, some of you may have believed that this Gibb lady is complicit into these murders, and I haven't picked up that feeling in listening to her interviews. I think she was just probably, like a lot of people, green at first when these people were asking her to do favors such as this, take pictures, blah, 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 possibly say, yeah, the child was with her, but she should have known something was up when she realized that whatever version they first gave was not the truth. One moment, please. Sorry about that. You guys had an important phone call. Okay, so we're going to get back to the information pertaining to Miss Lori. I don't know if some of you think that this Gibb lady was conspiring or not. Feel free to give your opinion in the chat. I'll also put up a community board question about that too, because I had somebody in the chat not too long ago say they believe that this Gibb lady was a part of the conspiracy. But as I said, when I've listened to her speak, I didn't gather that she was involved in having any knowledge of what Lori and Chad and Alex, and I believe that Nisha's involved as well. But when you listen to that phone call between the three, because Chad had put them on speakerphone, naturally they were fishing and they were telling her, you know, who was against them and this and that. And that you'll hear that lady say, well, I don't know that person, blah, blah, blah. And she asked him, well, why would you say I had him when I didn't? That was the perfect opportunity for Chad or Lori to say, well, yeah, you know, he was with you and blah, blah, blah. So that led me to believe that she didn't have any involvement in trying to hide JJ, because that would have been the perfect opportunity for Lori and Chad to say, oh, yes, you did know that we were hiding him out, or that you had him with you for day 1, day 2. You never heard any of that in that recorded conversation. Okay, I'm going to finish this testimony from day 4, everybody. It's a lot to digest. Now, I've just told you that Lori admitted that she had been intimate with Chad to this lady, and this was while they were married. And it goes on to talk about her telling this Gibb lady that JJ was a lot to handle, and that she was going to ask Kay to take custody of JJ, which we know she didn't, because I believe Kay would have told us that. She did ask, but she never brought him to me, or we never picked him up. Now, the lady testifies the last time she saw Tylee is just before they moved to Idaho. And then on one occasion, she visited with her boyfriend, Mr. David, and she saw JJ, but not Tylee. Later, Gibb testified that Chad had told Lori that JJ had become dark, and although Lori told her JJ's behavior and demeanor had changed, Gibb didn't notice any change, and that JJ was a typical young autistic 7-year-old. Gibb testified that Chad and Lori were affectionate during the visit, but that Chad asked Ward not to share information about the relationship with people. Naturally, he wouldn't want no one to know that they were secretly meeting each other because they both were married. The last time Gibb saw JJ was on September 22nd when her brother Alex Cox took him upstairs in Lori's apartment. The prosecution circled back with Gibb about conversations she had with Lori about why Lori thought Charles was trying to kill her. Lori believed Charles wanted the money. Once again, as I said, from a $1 million life insurance policy on her life. But it seems like some of you believe it was the other way around. She also allegedly told her that if Charles died, his sister Kay would receive the money from his $1 million life insurance. So this is a very important information, because you've got to decide what's the truth now. Do you believe this Gibb lady was told that by Lori? Meaning Lori knew she wasn't on the policy, but she killed him anyway. So then you have to ask, what was the motive for murdering Charles? What was the motive for killing the children and then Tammy? I still believe it's for them to be together, unobligated. And then, too, they're part of this, Mormon church. The church is against divorce. But this goes to show you, if they believe that their ideologies are sick, that you think it's okay to murder a person instead of divorcing them. Well, how is murder better? Because it's not. God is not going to condemn you because you divorce somebody, because we have a favorable God. So you rather go and plot the death of all these different people, kill them, and in your eyes think that what you have done is morally correct because of religious beliefs, and that you're the chosen one, you and Chad, but all these other people are dark entities, and you want us to believe that God, Jesus, spoke to you to kill all these people, when we already know Jesus never told you to do any of those things. You all killed these people because you two wanted to be together, and your sick ideology possibly told you, well, divorce is wrong, but murder is right. Which I'm trying to figure out, what scripture did you read? Murdering was better than divorcing. But see, we're never going to know the truth because these two are never going to tell the truth. I doubt that they'll ever tell the truth of why they killed these people. So people are just going to assume what they want, that these two just wanted to be together. So they murdered all these entities so they wouldn't be obligated. And the fact that she was collecting Social Security benefits for the children shows she knew right from wrong. Because you didn't report the kids missing. You didn't call the Social Security Board to say you no longer have custody of the children because they're dead. Because you orchestrated their deaths, Lori Vallow Daybell. Let's wrap this up. Asking why Lori just didn't divorce Charles, Lori told Gibb she didn't believe in divorce due to religious views. Gibb testified that she next spoke with Chad in November 2019. It was during this call that Chad told her the Rexburg police would be calling because they were looking for JJ and told her not to answer the phone. Gibb said she thought JJ was with his grandparents, but Chad told her that wasn't the case. Lori informed Gibb that she had told police that JJ was watching Frozen with Gibb and asked her to take photos of random kids at the movie theater and send them to the police. At first, Gibb avoided police phone calls, but eventually spoke with them to tell them she did not have JJ and he had not been with her. The prosecution entered a 20-minute phone call into evidence between Gibb and Chad and Lori. When Gibb confronts them about JJ, Gibb had recorded the call. Also in the tape conversation, Lori said she would do what the Lord tells her to do and that Kay Woodcock had threatened her. Then they talked about scriptures. Lori was being tricked by Satan. Lori struck back saying maybe it was Gibb that was being influenced by dark thoughts. In the call, Chad also claimed that his wife Tammy was not healthy and was getting weak and that was why she died. The call proceeded to get combative with accusations from both sides about who believes in what and what is happening with JJ. After a break, Gibb testified that Lori had said that Tammy Daybell had been suspicious of the affair between Chad and Lori and that she had turned dark approximately 2 weeks before her death. Interesting. So now we have a dark daughter, a dark 7-year-old son, and now, oh, no. Charles was dark. They were doing castings to get the evil out of him, which makes no sense. Because don't you need the person to cast the evil out of him? Because I know that when exorcisms are done, you kind of have to have the body of the person to exorcise the demon out of him, I would assume. So why wasn't Charles ever present? I'll wait. So we have a dark husband. He dies first. We have a dark wife, I'm assuming. She dies. She was sick. We have 2 children missing. And they were also said to be dark by Lori Vallow Daybell to Miss Gibb, to Chad, to whoever would listen. Who else did they tell that these entities were dark, I'm wondering? Because imagine telling someone this. Oh, my husband's dark. Oh, my child is dark. Oh, my other child is dark. And then they all end up dead. Missing and dead. So as I said, 10 billion people on top of this earth, allegedly. And out of all the people on the earth that are possibly dark, these are the only 4 that are related to them that are dark spirits, who all happen to end up dead. I want you to think about that now. 6 degrees of separation. These people cross paths with each other. Billions of people on top of the earth that are rapists, serial killers, defrauders, every known sin to man. But these are the only 4 dark ones that deserve death. But none of these people are admitting to murdering these 4 people. All right. Okay. Now, Gibb has testified that Tammy had been suspicious of the affair between Lori and Chad. And 2 weeks later, this lady ends up dead. Gibb claimed Lori was very happy to marry Chad and had never shown remorse or sadness, similar to the reaction from Lori after Charles died. She then discussed Lori's belief in zombie teachings and how Gibb, Lord have mercy, didn't believe in them. Gibb shared her feelings with Cox, who sided with Lori, telling Gibb he completely believed in them. They considered Charles, Tylee, JJ, and Tammy were zombies. Now imagine that. Miss Gibb is telling this lady, I don't believe in this foolishness you're talking about, but the brother, who's no longer living, he's telling her, I guess, oh, but I believe in it. And look what happened to him. He allegedly dies of natural causes, a heart problem or something, if we're to believe that is the truth. The defense asks when was the last contact Gibb had with the prosecution, to which she said that except within the last month, it had been years ago. And even then it was a Zoom call. She admits to being forgetful. Gibbs testified that she had created a 7-page document with her testimony that was completed in 2020. The state immediately reacted, asking that the witness testimony be stricken, as she said the prosecution never provided the statements to the defense. Following lunch, the defense asked questions about what was meant by JJ being possessed. Gibbs says she took it to mean possessed by an evil spirit. The defense then asked for information about the shooting of Charles Vallow and about Gibbs' relationship with Tylee, of which she testified that Tylee didn't like her very much. Very interesting. Gibbs' relationship with Tylee, of which she testified that Tylee didn't like her. So why would Tylee not like Miss Gibb? This is interesting because I've never heard of this before. I want to make sure I'm repeating this carefully. The defense asked information about the shooting of Charles Vallow and about Gibbs' relationship with Tylee, of which she testified Tylee didn't like her very much. Well, why wouldn't Tylee like Miss Gibb? That's very interesting. I'd like to hear more elaboration on that, why she felt like this child didn't like her. The defense continued by asking Gibb if, since Kay Woodcock was to receive the money from Charles' life insurance policy, was there any financial incentive for Lori? Gibb says she doesn't know. The defense also inquires where Gibb heard Chad would lose his status in the church if he were to divorce Tammy. Gibb says that's what Lori told her. Gibb then admitted to initially lying to police about JJ, saying, I had him, but I didn't have him anymore, and that Lori came to pick him up. She now says that was not the truth. Gibb also testified she contacted the Gilbert, Arizona police and said she would send the recording of the telephone conversation to them. When asked why she recorded the call, Gibb acknowledged she was concerned about JJ. Now, this is probably where many people felt like Miss Gibb was involved, because she said she had the kid at first. So if you have a person feeding you a bunch of garbage and lies and you're friends with them, maybe you will go out on a limb for them and lie for them. People do it all the time, but the person doesn't know why they're lying for the person. But see, this is why you have to ask people, hey, tell me the truth. What's really going on? And it would be sad to know this woman has some knowledge that something nefarious had happened with these kids and people, and she's not telling the truth. But as I said, when I listened to her talking that recorded call, she doesn't sound like she had knowledge of JJ or Tylee, or that she hid them, or that she knew that they were dead. Because as I said, at that time of that recorded call, Lori had time to tell the truth, to say, oh, you know, you had him. You know, I brought him to you, or you picked him up. You never hear that in the conversation. You hear her asking Lori, why did you tell these people I had your kid when you know I didn't? That was the perfect opportunity for Lori to combat and say, oh, but you did it one time. She never does that. So I think the lady lied to help her friend, but she didn't know that she was helping a murderer. And at some point, her conscience must have ate at her. So she did contact the police to say, hey, I got to tell you the truth. I never had the kid. Here's the phone call that I recorded between all three of us. And it's a good thing she did that, because who wants to be wrapped up into a murder mystery pertaining to 4 people and having knowledge that these people were dead? And now you've got to go get you a lawyer to try to prove your innocence with a woman you thought was your friend. Lord have mercy. Finally, questioning focused on conversations that Gibbs had with Alex Cox. Gibbs confirmed that Cox told her that she didn't want to know where the children were. Cox also told Gibbs that Chad had given him a patriarchal blessing that Cox was honored to have. Gibbs also later spoke with Cox's wife, who conveyed that Alex had said the kids could not be found. This article was provided by KIVI-TV in Boise, Idaho. Fox 13 Salt Lake City News is the contributor of this information if you need verification. This is just insane to me. So who is Mr. Daybell to be giving someone this blessing, patriarchal blessing. And then he said he was honored to have, allegedly, Mr. Cox, who's no longer living. Then you also hear that Gibb spoke with Cox's wife, who conveyed that Alex had said the kids could not be found. So do you see the web here of different people being wrapped up in this saga of dead people? Now you have Miss Gibb. She's spoken with Alex's wife, and she's repeating that Alex said kids can't be found. So now you have to ask yourself, what does that wife know? Children were dead. Did he preach that dark spirits and they were balls bad? But obviously the police investigated. They found this man to be non-negligent of murder. But I would assume a person would be badly injured by a bat. They're arguing with someone and the person grabs a bat. I think the person would probably swing more than one time if they're mad. And Charles appeared to be a heavier man, muscular guy. I think he would have beat the brakes off of that guy. So I agree with that lady's commentary. Miss Gibb knew more than what she has testified to. The fact that Chad didn't want her telling people about them is the obvious. They were having an affair. The fact that she said Lori told her about them being intimate. Will we find out they are related to the deaths of these children in any way? The recorded phone call. You hear Lori asking very quietly, did they seize anything? Then you hear Mr. Chad. They're searching. And at this point, she's in a Rexburg jail for not bringing forth her children. I think at some point, anyone with a sane mind would have gathered common sense that the children were not alive. Because when you know a person and you know their family members, their relationship, there's something. Well, where are these children? You said this boy is over here, but then that person recants and says, no, I didn't have him. I was going along with the flow. And then this lady tells you that when she went to see Lori, she and her boyfriend, she saw JJ, but not Tylee. That's because Tylee was already dead. So we have to ask ourselves, did they murder the child when they got back on Idaho land, soil? Because I would hate to think, which is already horrible anyway, that she was murdered at that park and they traveled with a dead body in a car. Or let's just say remains. Because out in the wilderness, you can do a whole lot to a body without anyone knowing. And it will be disturbing to know they murdered her at that park, dismembered her at that park, and then carried her across state lines in a tote or bag, and then disposed of her body in that shallow grave alongside her brother. So it is believed Tylee was killed first. So where was she killed, and what was the manner of death? I also brought you commentary that she didn't have any hands. There were no hands. This is the most dumb. Lord have mercy. It is one thing when when you think of serial killers and what they do to their victims alive and deceased afterwards, after death. Keeping mementos, body parts, such as Jeffrey Dahmer. He kept body parts of the males. But to know that this person was hacked up, and just, as they said, mass and bones were left of Tylee, you're asking yourself, why did you do this? What sane reason would you have to kill a child, dismember a child, then try to burn the child, throw him in a shallow grave, then later kill the boy child, wrap him up with duct tape and plastic, but you didn't try to chop him up or burn him up? Because in the end, murder is murder. And what you do after death is no more heinous than the actual death, because you don't have any business killing these kids. And many are going to question the motives for murdering all these people. I just believe these two wanted to be together. And it was just easier than explaining why you're getting rid of a child that you asked to have custody of, because she was saving face. She couldn't give JJ back to Kay because she and Charles asked to adopt the little boy. So how's that going to look 6 or so years later? Hey, I want to give him back because I want to run off with this zombie preacher. And what is his status? What was his status in the church before these murders, Mr. Chad? So this is how you know that they're sick. She's following behind a sick man, feeding her this garbage because she's gullible. I believe Lori was gullible at some point. 4 husbands, shows you she's going from man to man, making children. Marriage is not working. And it's not to say that she was at fault in all her marriages, but she obviously has some bad stuff going on to be divorced that many times. Married and divorced, okay? Then you're having an affair and you're following behind a man that's a fictional writer and talking about apocalypse and zombies and you've lived past lives, and everybody in your circle all of a sudden out of the blue has a dark spirit. You don't find that strange? That everybody in her circle were dark, but not her brother. But then the odd thing about that is, ironically, he pops up dead same year. And it could have been natural causes. But isn't that what they thought Tammy died of? And they knew better once they saw JJ and Tylee missing. Uh-oh, wait a minute. We better go check on this other guy's wife because he's already married a new lady and she's got too many death and missing children in her arena. What are the odds? You see, one thing begets another. Sick. Let's play some information from YouTube. Thank you all so much for joining. Wicked. This is wicked, wicked, wicked. I've also seen in the YouTube queue a day ago that Mr. Jamie Foxx has had some type of medical complication and he's in the hospital in Atlanta. That was a day ago. I don't know if he's been released or not. Please go to my community board. You will get to hear the secret recordings and the blessing and witnesses pertaining to the courtroom insider pertaining to Lori Vallow Daybell. Let's hear about the phone call. Let's hear what Mr. Cuomo has to say, him and his cohorts. News Nation is the source, everybody. Jury hears phone call between Lori Vallow and friend about son's disappearance.
All right, Lori Vallow, the doomsday mom, took a hit at trial from her best friend today. Melanie Gibb took the stand along with audio tape of a highly incriminating phone call. Let's bring in podcaster Gigi McKelvey, who's not just great at analysis. She is a witness to the proceedings. She's in the courtroom, the only eyes and ears you're going to get because there are no cameras, with high-profile defense attorney Mark Geragos and former prosecutor and famed defender Mark O'Mara. The two Marks. I'll be more specific. Gigi, I start with you. How you told me yesterday that this was going to be the beginning of a litany. Geragos said the same thing. You guys were right. So before we play this call, what is it about?
call was recorded by Melanie Gibb back in November of 2019, where Chad and Lori were in Hawaii and they had been married. And she was asking them, why did you tell the police I had JJ? You're making me look weird. Well, I mean, that's not hard to do with this whole religion thing. But so essentially, she's just asking her, why did you lie and put me in that position? Then they kind of have a religious scripture, I know you are, but what am I, that kind of goes on for a while. But, you know, Lori flat out says in this recording, I know where JJ is. He's safe. He's happy. And Alex doesn't know where he is. That's going to come back to bite her.
Let's hear it.
Well, I was wondering why you told the police why he was with me.
I just needed to have somebody so I wouldn't have to tell them where he really was, because they were going to tell Kay where he was.
Yeah. Is JJ safe?
He is safe and happy.
I'm just worried for you guys because, you know, he's missing and, you know.
I know exactly where he is. He's perfectly fine. I don't know what your intention is on this phone call, but with all my heart, and I have forever, and I will always love you.
I appreciate those words, but if you really loved me, you wouldn't have told the police that I had JJ with me. That's not what a friend does.
I did exactly what I felt the Lord was instructing me to do.
One of the most dangerous forms of proselytizing is when people use some divine authority to justify the worst of us. Now, Gigi, just so that we're straight on the timeline here, is there any chance that her son was okay at that time?
No, unfortunately, JJ and Tally both were dead and buried in Chad Daybell's backyard at that point of the phone call. So, no, there was no chance. The kids were already dead by the time Kate called in the welfare check. They were killed in September of 2019. Wasn't discovered until November of 2019 that they were even missing.
Mark Garagos, the defense wanted to get this thrown out. On what good basis?
Well, there's all kinds of arguments you could make. The problem is that the mother of the judge has not been born that's going to exclude it in the case involving the death of two young people. I hate to be a cynic, but whether you're going to argue that it was an unconsensual taping and they're going to come back and say, okay, so what? It's a declaration against penal interest. It's a pretty damning tape. I mean, there's no
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Ifs and buts about it. I assume that there's other things that could be said, but you're going to have to. This is something that needs a lot of explaining, and jurors are going to put a lot of credence in this because there's basically how could you tell them that you've gotten me in trouble?
Right.
Is something that a juror it's going to resonate with most jurors.
All right, so now that is the elephant in the room, okay? The elephant in the room is how the jury is going to take what is going to become painfully obvious, all right? So let's start with the present sense impression of today, which was a step down the road of damnation. And then I'm coming to you, O'Mara, about how the prosecution is going to deal with that. So, Gigi, when the jury reaction from what you could tell.
Oh, Chris, watching the progression of the jurors' faces from just going from a detective on the stand first thing this morning to about 5 minutes into Melanie Gibb's testimony, their faces told stories. I think this jury truly doesn't know much about this case. They were shocked. They were bewildered. They were just stoic. Some had their mouths open. I mean, I think that this jury really today got a rude awakening as to why they're here and what drove these murders.
Hey, thank you for watching. Please go to News Nation.
All right, everybody. So, as I said before, when they were talking in that recorded conversation, it was helpful for Ms. Gibb to show that she did not have the child at all and that she did not appreciate her so-called friend lying on her. And she told Lori, this is not what a friend does. And at any time, Lori could have said, but you know you did have the child, but you didn't hear Lori respond in that manner. She said she did what she thought the Lord wanted her to do. And as Cuomo said, it is wrong to use a higher power as an excuse to lie and manipulate, defraud, and then murder someone and say God told me or orchestrated me to do this, or Allah or whomever, because we know that there is no entity, higher power, God, Allah, that would tell you to murder children, murder spouses, covet, lie, commit adultery, and cover up their deaths, bury them, and then also lie on other people as cohorts. God would not tell you to do that. Jesus would not tell you to do that. Very disturbing. 1 second. If there's anybody in the chat that wants to give his or her opinion pertaining to this information, I'd like to hear from you. I'm already an hour and 25 minutes into this live stream. Thank you so much for following the content. I really appreciate it. That was the best thing that lady did, was to record it, because if you lied at first, you're going to always have people involved. So I guess her mindset thought, tape myself and clear myself up as not having any involvement or knowledge of these missing children. And that was the right thing for her to do. Because as I said, many people lie for their friends and family. A lot of people, when they're out having affairs and doing things with other people, or they just don't want people in their business, they'll just say, hey, just say I was with you at the bar, or I was with you at a party, when you know that they weren't there with you. You didn't see them. And common sense would be, you should ask the person, well, why should I tell somebody that you were with me, or that I saw you over here at this time? What is it that you're trying to get me involved in? Because everybody knows that once you start a lie, you'll probably have to continue the lie. Because if a person confronts you about this other person, hey, did you see Bob at the party? And you say, yeah. The next question is going to be, well, how long was he there? Did you see him leave? Did you see him leave with somebody? So now you've got to do what? Tell another lie. And then imagine when it gets out, when the truth gets out, now that same person is going to double back to you. Of course they will. And say, well, why did you lie? And say you saw Bob there. And what are you going to say? Well, I did it because my friend asked me to. And the next thing you know, this person is going to start telling you why they asked you about it in the first place. See, one thing begets another. It doesn't stop. That's why it's best not to get involved in people's affairs and lie for them, because you don't know what you're doing by aiding the lie. It's just best you don't. 1 second, you guys. I'm going to put the link down just in case I have a victim that wants to join the queen up here briefly for their commentary, because I'm sure there are many people who have opinions pertaining to this case, and I'd like to hear what you have to say. And I'm sure the viewing audience would love to hear what you have to say pertaining to this. If you're new to this network, feel free to hit the link and be heard. I'm going to play one more audio. We're going to go back to the third day testimony. Thank you for joining me. Once again, The Wrong House is the movie for this weekend if you want to find something suspenseful to watch. Let's talk about the wood paneling that was found in the shallow grave. Stones, wood panelings and stones placed atop JJ's body. This was uploaded today. News Nation is the source. Very disturbing information.
Vallow said, I want out. I want out of this courtroom now. That's what she said yesterday when they started showing pictures of her dead children's remains.
warning, if you're squeamish, please turn it down, turn away, whatever it is. I need to say something. It's important because it's germane to the story, and it's gross and it's horrible, and no one should ever have to say this, let alone live it, let alone be in a courtroom to experience it. Tylee Ryan was chopped to bits, and they tried to burn her, and it didn't work. So they threw her remains in a cemetery. But they missed some because the detectives found her teeth and pieces of her bones still in the fire pit. That's what they're saying in court. Yeah. If I were her mother, I'd probably want out too. But too bad. She's being charged with the murder, so suck it up. That's what the judge effectively said. My words, not his.
Wow.
The way JJ was buried, it kind of looks like they just realized it didn't work with Tylee, so we better just bury him whole. But here's what's weird. When they started digging to find JJ, they discovered first there were stones and then boards and then JJ. That's going to matter. That's going to matter a lot. But I want you to hear the detective in court today as he discovered, or he determined why they even discovered the spot where JJ ended up being buried. Take a listen.
There was longer grass and weeds that were longer than about a 4x2 section where there was shorter grass and just a little bit of dirt showing. So initially, that's what caught our attention. The ERT team removed the top layer of soil. It began to expose 3 large white rocks. And at that point, there was a strong odor that was a decomposing body. Under the 3 large rocks, there was 2 pieces of wood paneling.
It's pretty significant. Why would someone do that? I mean, I started this show 25 minutes ago saying, I don't know how to bury a body. I don't think you do either. And if we Googled, I'm not sure we would learn that. Maybe we would. Grave diggers know, though. Can I just tell you that the paneling, the wood paneling that they found placed over JJ's body, it matched some paneling in Chad's garage. It wasn't exact, but they were very similar. Panels in his garage, panels over the dead boy's body. Thank you for watching. Go to News Nation now.
That's Banfield, everybody. Wow. Naturally, a human being can't wrap himself, herself up and place himself in a grave and cover himself up. That would be highly impossible. Nor could a female kill herself, dismember herself, and or burn herself and bury herself in a grave and cover herself up. Someone killed these children and put them inside of the grave. And what I'm trying to understand is what was the purpose of the paneling and the rocks? Because when you dig it up, an outsider, which would be law enforcement, they're going to continue to dig it up. And the smell gave way to what was under the paneling and the rocks. Common sense. And what's interesting is they said they smelled decay, and you're talking about almost a year later to when the children were discovered in the shallow grave. It was late summer 2020. And they were put in there fall of 19. So the earth still emanated a smell. Imagine that. Because you would think at that many months that went by that perhaps the bodies would not smell. But obviously they did. And as I said the other night, imagine being the people who found the bodies, law enforcement that retrieved the bodies, took the bodies out, carried the bodies to the coroner. And the coroner who had to unravel all this plastic and duct tape and this and that and perform an autopsy on the boy child and then look through the remains of the girl child. And you also hear Banfield saying teeth were found in the pit, fire pit, so that they not have to say, so the fire pit was on the same property. So obviously they burned her there, because remember I asked that in the beginning or a little while ago, where was she murdered? How was she murdered? Where was she murdered? And if there were remains of the girl child in a fire pit, then that means she was burned on the property. So her body was taken there to be burned and or tried to be dismembered. And then as you hear her say, they couldn't fully do it, which I don't know why. You have time. Nobody knows what you're doing out there. Maybe they got scared. Took too long, or it would draw attention, a fire burning. Because naturally, if you see smoke, see a fire burning, you may call the fire department. And maybe that's why they didn't finish the child off, because he feared somebody calling the fire department. That's the only logical reason I could assume why the child's body wasn't fully burned. He got scared that somebody might call the fire department, or the police might come by, ask, what are you burning? Which, you have private property. You're entitled to burn whatever you want, debris, trash, whatever. But you always have that one neighbor that might be curious. And I would think they would probably want to do it at nighttime, because there's no set time when you want to burn trash on your property. See, I don't know, because I wasn't there. But I'm just trying to use some logic to why one's charred, not fully burned, and the other one was not. And the boy child's the one wrapped. Because as I said, the smell would probably be ferocious in the fire. That's another thing. See, there are lots of reasons possibly why both were not fully burned. One is going to draw attention. Two, it's going to be a smell. And I believe I've heard from true crime, a burnt body has a very bad smell. Death is already smelly. So now imagine skin, tissue, bone, plus hair burning. And then naturally, it's going to be seen from somebody driving by on the road. And as I said, all you need is one nosy Parker. Hey, what were you burning back there? Had a weird smell. Wow. Sad. Two innocent children just snuffed out for no reason. Oh, Lordy. We're going to play some more information from a day ago. Lori Vallow murder trial. Jury hears her jailhouse call with Mr. Daybell. News Nation is the source. I think that's the smoking gun, too, besides the dead kids in the grave. That phone call tells it all. That the kids were dead while they were having this conversation, all three of them on speakerphone.
From outside the Ada County Courthouse, Lauren Mathias hosted the podcast. And so jury reacts, guys, when they see and hear stuff like that. We couldn't see it today, but we could see it back then. What was it like in the courtroom?
One thing that I noticed, Ashley, was they were listening intently. And I think that Gigi agrees. We were talking about this. They were listening to every word. They were curious. And I think that one thing that's really interesting about this call is what's not said, rather than what. And she doesn't ask, well, why would they be searching? She's asked, okay, well, what can I do for you? Fascinating for the jury. What did you think?
Yeah, they were digesting that for sure. They were kind of listening, looking up at the ceiling, and then they would look at Lori. And I agree with her. The first thing you do when you say you don't know where your kids are is, well, why would they be searching in the yard? Neither one of them said that. In fact, twice Chad had to say, are they seizing stuff? And Chad says they're searching the property. And she didn't get it. So he had to reiterate that twice to her. And so the jury, I don't think it was lost on them what was going on in that call.
Well, I certainly feel like this is me talking, I think she did get it. I think she did get it, and she knew she was on a recording, and she could only say things like, what should I do?
Right, exactly.
So
Exactly.
I find that conversation so fascinating. There's one other thing that was significant today, guys. They showed Tammy's autopsy pictures, in the courtroom, and the detective said today that they witnessed Chad and Lori out and about around town holding hands, and that was one of the reasons they're like, okay, hold it. She just died. She's healthy. She's like in her 40s, and this guy's already like within a week or two out holding hands with this lady. We need to exhume. Tell me a little bit about how hard that was, that looking at autopsy pictures of Tammy Daybell for this jury, because yesterday they had to see the horror of their lives with the children's remains.
Yeah, we learned a little bit more about how she was exhumed, and it wasn't actually the autopsy photos we saw, but we did see Tammy deceased dressed in religious clothing in her they were LDS temple clothes, and she was there, and we could see her. It was heartbreaking after seeing the children yesterday and Tammy today. It was very overwhelming to see. And the jury, what did you think the jury saw when they were looking at Tammy? And then the removal of the vault too. They showed the removal of the vault and taking her out of the grave.
Yeah, they showed a progression of photos from just the backhoe waiting by the grave before they broke ground all the way through to the empty hole in the ground. And then just that overhead shot of her on the autopsy table in her temple garments. But what was interesting to me too is one thing that one of the detectives, the last person on the stand, testified to is that she only was on medication for depression, 2 different medications. And she was not somebody who went to the doctor regularly. So there was no sign that this 49-year-old had any heart disease or anything like that. It was 2 medications, both of those. And look, we think that Tammy Daybell knew about this affair. We think Charles Vallow was successful in contacting her or her own suspicions. But we've heard from Melanie Gibb, who was in this group, that Tammy did confront Chad about the affair. So I think that lack of medical condition, along with this public display 2 weeks after she's murdered, is why she was exhumed and now why we have murder charges. She did not die a natural death.
And it does make sense. I want to add to that. Sorry.
Real quick.
I just want to add to that that Tammy's children and Chad have always stated that her health was failing her. So this really is an important piece of evidence.
Baloney. Yeah. I'm just going to call it baloney because everybody else who looked at her said she was absolutely fine and that she was a healthy 48, 49-year-old who shockingly just died in her sleep, and the kids didn't ask for an autopsy, neither did Chad. So I'm going to call baloney on that one. But guys, I'm going to check in with you tomorrow to see when they bring up how she died, the asphyxiation part, because I think they're going to find that her nose was pushed over because I think she was probably asphyxiated maybe with a pillow. I'm just going to guess on that one. Wow. Either that, because they didn't find any drugs in her system where, drug her and put a bag. And so I think they're going to look and maybe come up with the nose being pushed down from an asphyxiation. But Lauren Mathias and Gigi McKelvey, thank you again for doing all this work for us.
Thanks, Ash.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you for watching. Go to
Banfield, News Nation. Why was there no autopsy? We've learned that usually autopsies are ordered by the coroner when there is suspicions of death, such as visible wounds to a person's face, head, body, torso. Then one is ordered. So the fact that one wasn't ordered means she looked like she died naturally. Small town probably don't get a lot of deaths or murders. Most are probably natural. But because he's out gallivanting around with a new woman, a new blonde-haired lady, shortly after the death of his wife, didn't look good. Then here we have 2 children missing and also a dead husband of this woman Chad is courting around with. So now here comes the talk, the gossip, so on and so forth. How was she killed? Was she given some type of drug in her food to make her pass out and or die? Did he order some type of drug? Will we find out that he ordered some type of drug? Will there be some type of evidence through phone records, emails, or mail that he ordered something or he bought something, some type of way to kill her, to make it look like she peacefully died? Children and Chad say she was failing health, but others say she was not. Who are the other people that said she looked healthy? You also hear that she didn't go to the doctor regular. Now, a lot of women will see about their health more than a man would. So was this woman ill and didn't know she was ill? Was she failing in health but didn't tell anybody? Or she was murdered? You hear the word asphyxiation. So was she suffocated in her sleep? Suffocated alive? Bag put over her face? What? Joker given intravenous such as info. On food, off the item back. So imagine being choked or suffocated. Those are some long 3-4 minutes until death. I would hope that she wasn't awake when she was killed, if evidence shows that she was indeed murdered, Miss Tammy. How do his children feel now, Mr. Chad? Are they still in agreement that their mother died naturally? Who in the family believes Chad Daybell killed his wife? And that is the worst thing you can have, family members pitted against one another when it comes to the death of a human being and or murder. Because people fall out with each other when a person naturally dies or was sickly. Now imagine they were murdered, and some believe the person was murdered and some don't believe the person was murdered. You've seen this with people who have children. Some kids believe the father or mother didn't do it, and some believe they did. And now the children don't speak to one another. See, as I've always said, you don't know people. And Chad is exemplary of this, and so is Lori. Whether Lori was misled by Chad through these crazy ideologies, the point is she knew right from wrong, because you can't take parts of the Bible and point it to your life, and then the other part of the Bible you glaze over and dismiss, such as murder. There's no way you can dismiss murder in the scriptures, but put your stamp on adultery and coveting and lying. She knows those are sins, and he knew as well. He knows as well. So murder is just like jaywalking in the eyes of Chad and Lori. Oh, it's no big deal. We want to be together. We'll kill everybody off. We don't have to do any legal wranglings, dividing up houses, estate, monies. Murder's the easy answer. Because maybe that's what it's about. The church. Ideology. Fake dedication to God. Because what did I tell you about the pretending to be a Christian and taking what you want from the Bible and adhering it to your lifestyle? So you're pimping Jesus is what I call it. I don't mind murdering these people to get to this man or this woman. but a little blasphemy in adultery. What you say? Chad decides to go. Their roles into the disappearances of these children. Realizing Miss Gibb is upset that they're implicating her into holding Mr. JJ when he was dead all along. But what's the old saying? With friends like these, who needs enemies? Exactly, because you don't know people. People will flip on you. People change their ways, their thinking at the drop of a hat. Because what I think of you today, I may not think of you tomorrow. And obviously, Lori didn't think highly of her friend. Because why would you lie on your friend when you knew you had killed this boy and your other child and orchestrated the death of your husband and conspired to kill Miss Tammy? Hell yeah, they're going to throw her in on that charge. Because there's too many people missing and dead. Why not? Because naturally, you can't explain all these dead people. Now, have we seen many people lose family members back to back? Of course. Some were murdered, some died naturally, some were sickly. But no proof of orchestration and conspiring. It's a difference. Very sad here. If you're in the viewing audience, you can hit the link if you want to give your opinion pertaining to this diabolical case, because indeed it is diabolical. It's just sinister. Oh Lord. I just can't imagine finding those kids down there in that grave like that. Now, when you go into News Nation, they have a lot of videos that they've uploaded recently. They've got one about the ex-friend of Lori Vallow testifies about being pressured to lie. Lori Vallow, how did her ex-friend's testimony affect the case? So there's a lot of videos uploaded. I don't want to have to play all of them, but just in case if you're curious to this information. I was trying to find the latest information. I'm sure that testimony did it. Because like I said, the smoking gun with the bodies in the grave. But now that woman basically saying, I have any knowledge of what Sorry about that. Wi-Fi issues. I'm staying somewhere else, and the Wi-Fi went out. Sorry about that, you guys. Let's finish this commentary. It was pivotal because it shows she wasn't complicit in conspiring with Chad, Lori, the niece, and Alex Cox in the deaths of these people.
Relationship between Chad and Lori, how they met, the beliefs of the Doomsday Cult, as well as being a fact witness, as Gibb was asked to actually say that she was with JJ at some point when in fact JJ was missing. So all of that is really critical for the jury to understand. And as you said, for the jury to assess a mother accused of killing her children, they have to understand the why. And Gibb gave a bit of context to the beliefs of this cult and Lori Vallow's dissension into this belief system. So really important witness for the prosecution.
And Gibb wasn't there just to talk. She actually came with, like we like to say, receipts. Part of her testimony included recorded audio. One piece in particular stuck out. Let's take a listen. I'd like to get your reaction on the other side.
There's a turning point in my life that turned me to the temple. And this is what I teach everybody. And my change of heart was to the temple. So I had been married to someone who was very awful, who raped my children. And I had divorced him and gotten away from him. And he had joined the church. He spoke in state conference. Everyone thought he was wonderful. He was very good showman of all those things. And after we were divorced, he told everybody that I was this lying, crazy Mormon and got up in court and said all these horrible things about me and turned it around to where the judges believed him instead of me. And he was constantly trying to get custody of my 3-year-old daughter and just to rub it in my face. And I went through a lot of years of this kind of hard stuff. And I was going to murder him. I was going to kill him, like the scriptures say, like Nephi killed him, just to stop the pain and to stop him coming after me and to stop him coming after my children. And I was just...
I want to stop right there. There were allegations of this man assaulting her children. Is it true that he assaulted the children, boy children, and this baby girl? Because if Lori was, as I say, having mental issues beforehand, before getting with Charles, is it possible that she made up these allegations against this man because she was ill? Was there proof that he touched these kids, did something to these kids sexually? Okay? Because you hear her now using the Bible again to justify murdering this man. And naturally, anyone would want to harm a person that touched their children, violated their children. Some, let's say. I'm not going to say all. Because many children have been sexually assaulted, physically and verbally, mentally abused, and no one exacted any harm against the said parties that abused the children. Usually the children are removed from the state's care once there's evidence of any improprieties against the child. The children can go back to the home if the other party is not there at the house, the abuser. Severe abuse, children may not ever go back to the house. It's up to the state to decide. So I'm starting to wonder if perhaps Lori was already mentally tainted before getting with Charles, because this could hurt a person's mindset if indeed the allegations are true of this man doing things to her children. You're carrying that around and you're spinning this story to people. And I personally don't believe in telling all of my personal business about childhood and trauma. I don't think many people should tell it. A lot of people think it's a good idea to tell your personal business to strangers. I don't, because sometimes those things can come back and bite you in the butt. And I personally would not just be going around telling random people that my children were sexually assaulted by their parent or guardian or step parent. I just wouldn't. Now, maybe she felt like she was close enough to this lady, she would share this, but I do believe they had just met. When I think of audio I played recently, a few months ago, she didn't even know her well This is when they first met, if I'm not mistaken, when she gave this Gibb lady this information, because I think they were meeting at some like conference or something. So she didn't know her well enough to be telling her about what her husband allegedly had done to her children. So this would make me think, if there's no truth to it, because I'm going to do a research on that, maybe there's something wrong with Lori. And you hear her mother saying that in an interview, that she was always trying to get close to God and establish a relationship with God. She was always in the church and she wanted to remain in the church. Is it possible that this religion that these people are following has misled them in rightful thinking, common sense thinking? Because naturally, we know we can't solve our problems by murdering people when we feel like they've done something wrong to us. We cannot hurt them physically. We're not supposed to. But that's the thing. Anybody can be pushed to madness, to pop off. So you hear her mention murder once before. So now let's fast forward. Children missing, later found dead almost a year later. Husbands, wives are dead. You're still claiming to be a Christian woman. How can you claim to be a Christian woman and walking by the book that you believe in, and you've murdered your children? Because this is what's interesting about what she just said to this Gibb lady in this commentary, in this audio. You were willing to kill a man who assaulted your children, but then later, years later, you would kill those same children for a man. Do you all catch that? Stay woke now. You're willing to kill a man years beforehand for harming your children. But instead, many moons later, you would kill the children to keep a man. How about that? That is a strange oddity in this story. That's why this recording is gold. And I don't think some people caught that, but you know, the Queen listens. You would kill a man for harming your children, but years later, you killed your children to be with a man. Wow. There are no words.
I just thought I couldn't take it anymore. And I would go through the scriptures and find all the things like, if he comes against you once, if he comes against you twice, if he comes against you 3 times, then you can kill him. It says it in the scriptures. There it is. There's my answer.
Wow, you hear her talking about how she, again, Lori Vallow talking about how she felt as though she had been married to someone who was awful. And then she found the temple and that she was actually following the scripture that if he came at her once, if he came at her twice, the 3rd time, according to scripture in her mind, she was allowed to kill him.
Absolutely, and this is all a critical part of the case because part of what the prosecution has laid out in their opening statement, and we see nuggets of this coming out throughout the testimony, is that the scripture, the beliefs of this doomsday cult were used to justify all of the actions of Chad, and here where we're focused on Lori, this was from everything from the affair with Chad Daybell, justified by the scripture, to the deaths of the kids. All of that was looked to in those words. So this type of telephone call that we now have, we haven't reported, shows that mindset and that mentality, because intent is a critical part of this case. So all of that's really important to setting the overall stage for this conspiracy to commit murder and justify that murder in the scripture and in the doomsday beliefs.
Misty, I want to take a bit of a turn. I want to see if scripture can help her explain this part. We remember the moment detectives detailed the day that they found the children's bodies. That testimony was pretty convincing. I think that was probably some of the hardest part because we remember those silos and we remember how they found those bodies.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to...
All right, that's Mr. Cuomo. Very interesting information there. I want everybody to focus on that. I call it pimping Jesus. Using God as an excuse to do things. You hear her using 3 times. He struck me, violated me. So murder was the answer. But of course, he wasn't murdered. But she thought about murdering him, so she says. And then fast forward years later, Tylee's older. She's got custody of this JJ kid. And both end up missing and found in a shallow grave on her new husband's property. So there's your correlation of using this scripture, I guess from the Book of Mormon, as a way to solve your problems. Just murder the people. He said something to you, will kill him. She spotted you, kill her. They laughed about you, they lied on you, they stole from you, kill them. So you also hear about Social Security benefits. You don't hear the insurance policy mentioned, because possibly that wasn't the focus once Ms. Gibb said Lori knew about it and that Kay was on it. Possibly he told her. When they started having problems, he realized the marriage wasn't salvageable. Charles told her, well, you're not on the policy. Anything happens to me, Kay's getting my money. So really, it wouldn't make any sense for her to kill Charles for the motive of a $1 million policy, because Kay is the one who got it. So that means he changed it at some point. So now we ask that question. When did Charles change the beneficiary policy and put Kay on it instead of Lori? Maybe when he realized she was no longer in love with him, cared for him, was seeing Mr. Chad, because I believe at some point he realized she was messing around with Chad, and so did Tammy. Tammy found out at some point as well that Chad was messing around with Lori. Did Tammy confront Chad about his relationship with Lori? If she did he tell her the truth? Yes, I'm sleeping with her. I like her. I care for her. I want a divorce. I don't want to be with you. Blah, blah, blah. What were the conversations between Chad and his decedent wife? What were the conversations between Lori and Mr. Charles? See, those are the conversations I'd like to hear, because that will give us more information to the truth and the motives of all these people being murdered. Right now, we're just assuming why all these people are dead, that these two just wanted to be together. And frankly, how much money could she have been getting on these Social Security benefits for these kids? A little over 1,000 per kid. What? You're living in the Pacific Northwest. It costs a lot of money to live out there, I would assume. Rent's high, Arizona. I don't think rent's cheap out in Arizona. Got to pay bills, cost to feed, clothe, house, drive cars, car insurance, health insurance. So let's keep it real. If Lori wasn't keeping a lucrative job, how much money actually was she getting for the 2 kids to live off of? Now, I'm sure a single person could live off of that money, because single people live off of low income every day. But we do know how hard it is to live out west. So I'm trying to figure out how much money did she receive per child. And we know she didn't get any money from Charles' insurance. So the only thing she would be able to qualify is possibly his pension where he worked, and maybe 401 monies. So has she applied for any of those type of funds before she was arrested? Because that has not been mentioned. A lot of interesting details. I want to see if I can find something pertaining to this child molestation business. I said I was going to check out of here. I'm already at 2:08. So sorry. Still hanging on. One minute, everybody. Okay. Let me see. Hope you all are well. Once again, movie of the week, The Wrong House. Now my Google's gonna pick up on that. Because I want to get more information about this husband. I thought I had read something recently. And of course, many of you remember back in the fall, her son was accused, Lori's son was accused of sexual assault. But they were dropped back in September. Very interesting. And so we've learned that, oh, that's okay. Thanks, South Home, for joining us. We've learned that many predators were abused as children. And that's not to excuse their behavior as an adult. But if you don't seek help for why you're desiring children, then you will assault children. That's just common sense. And I don't think a lot of these men and women as well realize that they're sick and that they're desiring children. So they go on to assault children. And if we are to believe that perhaps Lori's son became an abuser, one would say he became an abuser because 9 times out of 10, he was abused as a child. And she made that allegation. And you just heard that in the audio that I played through News Nation, that she told this Gibb lady when she first met her about how she felt towards her husband at that time, who was accused of abusing her children. He's accused of sexually assaulting a woman, Lori's son, but they said those charges were dropped. I'm trying to find information about the husband. Excuse me. Let me make that clear. The son was accused of, I think it was raping his then wife. I don't know that he's molested any children. I'll make sure I clear that up. But just saying, abuse, sexual assault, child molestation, they're all in the same rim. Wanting control of the person. So it still wouldn't be no shock that, let's just say that was true, he did rape his wife at that time, that he had issues as a child with being assaulted himself. Because usually serial killers, rapists, child molesters have been assaulted as children. Let me make sure I clear that up. I'm trying to find this about her husband. I can't find anything. I think it's been a while since I had the information. Now, this was something I was wondering too about that sister of hers that said she was innocent and she would never kill her children. I see here a New York Post article that says Lori Vallow's sister admits she was wrong. Let's see what this says. Very interesting. That's why you can't say what a person would and would not do. People kill me with that. Oh, they would never do that. See, the title of this article, this is from 2020, June 26th. Lori Vallow's sister admits she was wrong to say niece, nephew would be okay. She says she admits she was wrong to say harm would never come to her niece and nephew after they were found tortured and buried in Vallow's husband's backyard. Because I was wondering what were her feelings about her sister now. And she says, I'm trying to type through this pain. It's difficult. The last few months have been hard. The last week has been excruciating. Losing our precious Tylee and JJ in this horrific way is more than we can bear. I have a tremendous amount of gratitude to all of the law enforcement that have worked so hard to find Tylee and JJ. When I first heard that remains had been found, I immediately felt the need to pray for those who found them. Exactly. They do need our prayers, because that's hard to pull out children out of a grave in the conditions that they were left in. And I continue to pray for those who were on the scene, remove the remains, and have to analyze them to try to piece together what those poor babies endured, Shiflett wrote. And the rest just goes on about her talking about prayer and all that. So this is why she should have never attempted to put her sister on a pedestal. Because you know, and I know, those kids didn't climb their way into that grave. I can't find anything about this man and molesting these kids. Were there any charges? I can't remember. Okay, here it is right here. It says Lori was apparently unaware that Ryan was sexually abusing her son until after their divorce in 2004. However, Kobe said the physical abuse was carried out in plain sight for all those to see, and his mom wasn't really there for him throughout it all. Interesting. This is from The Sun. Okay. This was uploaded back in September of 22. Now, this is around the time that he was arrested in Mesa, Arizona for this rape of his estranged wife while he was at her house watching TV. It's a very strange story, if you believe it's true or not. Because he was charged with 2 counts of domestic violence, sexual assault in connection to that attack. But the charges were dropped. I'm trying to get to where he talks about the abuse. It says, in an exclusive interview with his U.S. Sun at the end of May, Ryan recounted his tumultuous childhood living with Vallow, who rarely stayed in one place for too long and married often. Through the dysfunction, Kobe said he was forced to grow up quickly. He also forged an incredibly tight bond with his mom, who he described as being closer to that of a best friend than a parental figure. I think she leaned on me for emotion support, almost like a sidekick, he said. So that kind of forced me to grow up a little bit faster. And she and I just had this bond that was more like friends. She would take me to do fun stuff. She took care of me, and it was just me and her. We kind of faced everything together. Kobe and Lori's tight-knit bond became somewhat frayed a few years after she married her third husband, Joseph Ryan, in 2001. According to Kobe, Joseph Ryan, Tylee's biological father, was both physically and sexually abusive towards him. Okay, Lori was apparently unaware that Ryan was sexually abusing her son until after their divorce in 2004. So that was just 3 years that they were together, or almost 3 years. She didn't know other than how he treated me, which everybody could see how he treated me, but I never said anything because I was scared, he said. I just hid in fear. I didn't want to talk about it. I just put a lid on it because I felt embarrassed, and it was all very hurtful. Aside from that, how he treated me in front of other people was apparent. But in that time, it just felt like Lori was trying to let him be a father. Citing Joseph Ryan's military background, Kobe Ryan said his stepdad was a harsh disciplinarian, but that discipline started correctly, but quickly turned into just pure abuse. He was just abusive physically and verbally, he added, and it just turned into this whole other realm of abuse that I had to suffer, and I didn't really have anybody to lean on or help me get through it all. The mother and son managed to rekindle their close relationship after Lori left Ryan, but a wedge would be driven between them again when Kobe noticed his mother's Mormon beliefs becoming slowly plagued by radical doomsday prophecies. A few years later, Vallow alleged during a custody dispute that Tylee was also being sexually abused by Joseph Ryan. Interesting. The therapist informed us that Tylee reported being happy about the visits with her dad and wanting those visits to continue during their last session, states a document filed July 15, 2008 in a Travis County, Texas court. But the therapist then reported that Tylee added something along the lines of, "I'm scared about overnights." It continues. Interesting. When the therapist questioned her about this, she said something like, "Because Joe molested me and Kobe," quote unquote. Dang. It was around this time that Ryan told his mom about the alleged sexual abuse he experienced, a confession that he says left her devastated. The only reason I even told my mom was because Tylee was about to have a visitation with Joseph Ryan. And I'm like, there's no way I can let my little sister go be around him. I have to say something. It was really hard, that entire situation of talking about it, and I can remember how devastated she was. Vallow and Joseph Ryan remained in a bitter custody dispute over Tylee right up until his death in 2018, which was ruled to be the result of a heart attack. Very interesting. So we have an abusive father verbally, physically toward the stepson. Do not know if he was the same with Tylee. And the son speaks up because he realizes his sister has a visit with him, the decedent. This is very interesting. And now we have another dead husband under Lori's belt who died of a heart attack. So one, we're going to ask, did he actually die of a heart attack? Because remember, this is the same man that she told Miss Gibb she wanted to kill. Stay woke, everybody. Lord have mercy. Okay. Once again, Vallow and Joseph remain in a bitter custody dispute over Tylee right up until his death in 2018, which was ruled a heart attack. Lori married her for a fourth time in 2006 to Charles Vallow, providing Kobe with the stability and reliable father figure he had so long craved. Very interesting. But where his mother was concerned, Kobe said Lori appeared to be withdrawing, leaning increasingly into bizarre ideologies about an impending rapture that would end life as we know it. Okay. Then months after meeting Daybell at a Preparing a People conference in Utah in October 2018, Charles Vallow was shot dead by Lori's brother, Alex Cox, after he threatened to tell Daybell's wife, Tammy, about Chad and Lori's affair. So this is crazy. Very interesting. Months after meeting Daybell at a Preparing a conference in Utah, Charles Vallow was shot dead by Lori's brother, Alex Cox. Daybell told Vallow they had both been chosen by God to lead a group of 144,000 souls to usher in the end times and the second coming of Jesus Christ. He also convinced her that Charles Vallow had become possessed by a dark spirit and therefore needed to be vanquished. Crazy. According to authorities, not long after Charles was killed, Lori was convinced by Daybell that both her children had been possessed by evil spirits as well. The only way to free them, she allegedly believed, was for them to be killed. JJ and Tylee both reported missing November 2019. I don't know, for some reason I thought Charles died in 2019. Neither of the two children had been seen or heard for several weeks, as most of you know this. Tylee was last seen on a family trip at Yellowstone National Park September 8th, and JJ vanished in Rexburg, Idaho on September 22. So this is where I get confused about the baby, about the girl child, because they say it was a fire pit and her teeth were found in it. So I'm assuming the fire pit would have been on his property, Chad's property. So I'm trying to figure out, where was she actually murdered, since they say she hadn't been seen since September 22nd. No, I mean, they said he took a trip on September 8th and JJ vanished in Rexburg on the 22nd. So when was the girl child murdered? I'm curious. For several months, Lori had maintained that her children were safe and living with family members in Arizona, but refused to disclose where or with whom and ignored a court order to produce the kids to authorities. So let's go to where the children were discovered. In the backyard of the property, police found 2 sets of human remains buried in shallow graves that were soon confirmed to be Tylee and JJ. Tylee's remains had been dismembered and burned, while JJ was found buried in his red pajamas and wrapped in plastic bags with tape covering his mouth, arms, and wrists. Wow. Jesus. Chad Daybell was taken into custody the same day, and both he and Lori were later indicted by a grand jury on a number of charges related to the kids' deaths, including first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Lori's devoted brother, Alex Cox, was also believed to be involved in their murders. However, he escaped charges after he died suddenly in December 2019 from what we believe to be natural causes spurred by high blood pressure and blood clots wedged in his lungs. Tammy Daybell was also killed in a similar vein, investigators claim. Her death, which was initially ruled to be the result of a cardiac event, came in October 2019, just 2 weeks before Vallow and Chad Daybell tied the knot. So after Tammy dies, 2 weeks later, Chad and Lori marry. Very interesting. Authorities now deem her death to be suspicious, with courtroom documents saying that Cox attempted to shoot Tammy about 10 days before she died. Her body was exhumed, but the results of her second autopsy have not been disclosed to the public. Cox died a day before the exhumation took place. But now they're saying asphyxiation, because this is an older content article. For those who are curious to what I'm reading, by The Sun. This is from last year. Let me get the date on this. Yeah, September 10th, 2022. Very interesting information. All these deaths. What are the odds? Cox dies. This is just crazy to me. Let me read that again, because this is now, June 9th is when those bodies were discovered at Daybell's Salem, Idaho home. Both remains of the children were found. This is just, what's interesting is this right here. Authorities now deem her death to be suspicious, with court documents saying that Cox attempted to shoot Tammy about 10 days before she died. Her body was exhumed, as I just said, but the results of the second autopsy had not been disclosed to the public. Cox died a day before the exhumation took place. So he would have gotten wind about Tammy's body being exhumed. Could it be he got nervous about what they were going to find? Is it possible that he helped some way aid in the death of Tammy, Mr. Cox? Because I find that timing interesting. He dies right before the lady's body is to be exhumed. What are the odds of that? That's okay, everybody. Thanks for joining me, Don, everybody. See, all these deaths are tied together. There's no way you could think that they're not, even though they're saying his is natural. But that's what was said about Tammy, remember? And I'd like to know why the court thought she was not fit to stand trial at one time. So the husband who allegedly molested her children died. Tylee's biological father, stepfather to Kobe. So did this man touch these children? What I'd really like to get information on that. Is there some type of information? You have a therapist saying that the little girl did say something, that she was afraid of overnight visits. Could it be that they planted something in the little girl's head? I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying these people all seem to have a lot of problems. Problematic. They're problematic. Lori was problematic, became problematic. marrying all these different men. The son said they moved around a lot. So obviously, the boy child didn't have a stable life growing up, because you can't have a stable life when you're moving around from place to place as a child. You start meeting friends, getting used to your school, your teachers, that way. Now we're in the age of social media. You can keep in contact with, young people through, IG and Facebook, but it's still not the same when you can't go around your friends and you want to hang with your friends. So how many times did she move when she had children? Lori, how many places has she actually lived? How many addresses? What were the relationships with these husbands and her children? And to think that this one husband had a military background, so he was used to things being orderly. So he exacted that in the family life, allegedly. And then there are accusations of him messing with the children. So did he sexually molest both children? And the fact you hear her tell, Miss Lori telling Miss Gibb, she wanted to kill him. The Bible says I can do it. And as I said before in this live stream, how ironic that she tells this woman she wanted to kill this alleged child molester who she was married to. But then years later, she kills her children to keep a man, Mr. Chad Daybell. How ironic is that? One husband was unfit to have life for allegedly assaulting her children. But then years later, she would use that same biblical scripture to exact murder on possessed souls and spirits by direction from Chad Daybell, assumingly. So who orchestrated in her head that all these entities were evil and tainted? Chad or herself? I'd like to know. And I also found it interesting, the commentary I brought you, that Ms. Gibb says that Tylee didn't like her. I'd like to know why not. Is there something about this Gibb lady that isn't on the up and up? I don't know. But I don't think she had anything to do with hiding out the children or aiding in their deaths or conspiring, because that audio call, I believe that would have came out in that call by Lori and Chad that she had involvement, Miss Gibb. But these people are tainted because there's too many bad things have happened with all of them. Each one were married and each lost a spouse that have now been deemed murdered. An older son being accused of raping his wife on a visit to her house one day. Allegedly charges dropped. 2 children now dead. Lori's husband that was the molester, he ends up heart attack, gone. Did she have something to do with that? I don't know. Natural, was it? Use the brother to incite an argument with your husband. Shot dead. Tammy allegedly died naturally. Children and husband say she was sick, weak. Others say there was nothing wrong with her. Now her body's been exhumed and asphyxiation has been mentioned as her manner of death. Oh man, you can't make this stuff up. Let's talk about that. Like I'm never going to get off this live. But there's so much to this. That's why I never talked about this story when I first heard of it, because it had too many moving parts. I'm trying to find information about Tammy Daybell, her death. KSL TV is the source. After this, I am checking out here, everybody, because it's Friday. You all have a wonderful weekend. Please be safe out there. This is News 5, KSL TV. Prosecutors in the Lori Vallow Daybell trial revealed the long-awaited results of the autopsy of an autopsy performed on Tammy Daybell. Her cause of death was determined to be asphyxiation and not a heart attack as previously believed. Fremont County Prosecutor Lindsay A. Blake explained the results of the autopsy in opening arguments of the trial Monday morning. Tammy was married to Chad Daybell for 28 years before she reportedly died in her sleep. Her friend says she was healthy and in training for a marathon before her sudden death. Interesting. I never heard that. Deputies with the Fremont County Sheriff's Office responded and found Tammy dead in the Salem, Idaho home on October 19, 2019. An autopsy was not performed and Tammy was buried 3 days later. Friend and co-worker Mandy Fowler and multiple sources told KSL-TV that Chad Daybell refused to have an autopsy performed on his wife. They expressed concerns about Tammy Daybell's funeral, which they felt was rushed. Now, that is the normal amount of time to bury the dead, 3 days. Everybody knows this. And some religious practices probably less than that. I think the Jewish faith is less than 3 days. So why was he rushing? Because he didn't want them looking into her hair follicles, her bloodstream, her heart, liver, kidneys. That is usually where you will find poison, arsenic. That's why they always tell you to check the hair of the victim, because arsenic can be found in the hair, assumingly the roots of the hair, roots on the bulb of the hair. So I find that interesting now to hear he did not want an autopsy, and people were talking about how he was rushing to bury her. Very interesting. Most times people can't bury people because they don't have the funds at the time of burial. So obviously he had the funds to bury his wife. I'm just saying. Friend and co-worker, as I said, Mandy Fowler, and multiple sources told this news agent, KSL, that he refused to have an autopsy performed, and they expressed concerns about her funeral, which they felt was rushed. However, Chad Daybell's children told CBS News that Chad Daybell didn't refuse the autopsy. They did. Interesting. They also reported that she was in failing health. Her funeral was held on October 22nd, 2019 in Springville, Utah. Chad Daybell married Lori Vallow on November 15th, just over 2 weeks later. So how did the kids feel about him marrying Lori? You didn't want an autopsy, so you say to the news, but you didn't find a stranger, your daddy marrying another woman 2 weeks later? I'll wait. So how did they feel about him marrying her? Did their ideals change once he married this Lori person? Oh, wait a minute. We didn't want an autopsy, but now daddy's marrying somebody else. Do they get along, Lori and these children, adult children? Did they get along at the time that they got married? How did they feel about all the gossip and the news? I think maybe they didn't appreciate it, but you'd have to use common sense. You didn't want an autopsy done, but then 2 weeks later, your daddy's marrying another woman. You didn't find that strange. You didn't find it strange that her husband was dead. You didn't find it strange she had 2 damn missing children that were never found until the next summer on your dad's property, mind you. So how did they get there? How did the child end burned up with her teeth in a fire pit on his property? So please don't tell me these people are still upholding this man. And you still believe your mother died of natural causes. Come on now. Stop this nonsense. All right. Now, he's married Lori, November 5th, 2019. December 2019, investigators were calling Tammy's death suspicious. Okay. So from October to December, now law enforcement is looking at the two that just got married. Her death was later considered suspicious and her remains were exhumed December 11th, 2019. Very interesting. An autopsy was performed the same day, less than 2 months after her death. The results of that autopsy had never been shared with the public, being cited as part of the investigation up to this point. Her husband was later charged with her murder, and he has pleaded not guilty to those charges. Vallow Daybell is accused of conspiring to murder Tammy. She has also pleaded not guilty to that charge. Opening arguments, which was earlier this week on Monday. Blake explained that in October 2019, Tammy Daybell came face to face with a masked man pointing a gun at her. That same day, according to Blake, Vallow Daybell called an unnamed individual and said he can't do anything right. Vallow Daybell also called Chad Daybell. The day Tammy Daybell was confronted by a gunman, Alex Cox was in the location. The only person Alex Cox knew in that same area was Chad Daybell, Blake said. This is when she was allegedly shot with a paintball gun. So one would have to ask themselves, how was he going to kill her with a paintball gun? Maybe he was scared to shoot her, but he wasn't scared to shoot Charles. So somebody fires a paintball gun at this lady or some type of weapon. What was it, in her garage? Boudreaux got shot in his driveway in Arizona in a car that was belonging to Mr. Charles that was given to Tylee. Don't you see the irony in this story? That all the people that are being mentioned are no longer breathing except for Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow Daybell and her older son. Put that on paper. I believe the state has done an injustice by not offering the death penalty to Lori. She's killed all these people, conspired to kill these people. Whether she laid hands on them or not, she's the orchestrator, complicitor. It's all the same to me. So long as you know about it, conspired, hired somebody, you're just as guilty as if you shot them, beat them up, tied them up. It's all the same to me. These people lost their lives for possibly greed and mischief, adultery. And it's a shame that these people, Lori and her defense team, didn't want the Woodcocks there, which made no sense to me because they were going to hear the information regardless, whether there are cameras in the courtroom or not. As you see, the information has been repeated to the general public. We have heard about the phone calls. We have heard about Mr. Boudreaux and his relationship with these heathens. We've heard from Ms. Gibb. We've heard from investigators, detectives, coroners, whomever. It's free information. It's public information. And someone being in the court is not going to stop the information from being released. It's not going to stop their opinion of you. And frankly, Lori, I don't think you give a damn about what somebody think of you. Because if you did, you would have never killed all these people. You and Chad, Alex, and that niece of yours, she needs to be rung up high alongside you. Because I believe she has knowledge of all these murders as well. And you also heard me read information from the son pertaining to Kobe's perception of his mother being wrapped up in this doomsday BS that she started to change. Her demeanor shifted. And one could say this is possibly when she was hanging with Chad and listening to his garbage, that her idealism changed about the end of the world. So let's ask that question. Did she think she was one of the chosen ones before meeting Chad Daybell? Will we get information that she was spewing this type of ideology before meeting Chad? Because if so, then that means her brain was already tainted before she hooked up with him. He just put the icing on the cake. Which is it? I'll put these polls up on my community board. I want to thank you all for joining me and following this content. Sorry the live is a bit long, but I wanted to get this information out there because it's hard working around my schedule trying to do lives every day pertaining to this trial. But the next update will be pertaining to the information related trial today. If you want to follow this content, please go into YouTube queue for various information about News Nation and other various news agents. It is posted to my community board updates. Mr. Trump has faced a second deposition in New York City pertaining to fraud. And I've also brought you information pertaining to a young 21-year-old man in the National Guard who has leaked out secret information pertaining to our national security. We will see if he decides how he will face the criminal charges either by military court or federal court. Weekend Movie is the wrong house now playing in the YouTube queue. Thank you so much for your time. Like, share, subscribe. Drop your comments below this video and on my community page. And if you'd like to donate to this great network, $ Big Angie 129 Cash App. All stickers and chat are welcome during my live streams. Thank you all so much. Please have a peaceful, safe, enjoyable weekend. Don't take any wooden nickels, you guys. Thank you all. Thank you for following this content. You have been listening to The Vault XL.